So in this lesson, we're not focusing on the present or the future. We're going to focus on the past, talking about events that have happened or happened. We can't talk about the past tense because, in fact, there are many different tenses in the past. So let's focus on three. The first one is called the past continuous. In French, it's called l'imparfait, the imperfect, and it refers to an action that had continuation in the past, an action that lasted in the past. For example, I was watching TV. You've got this idea of duration. The second tense is the simple past or the past simple, and it can be translated as it rained yesterday, which means we're referring to an action that happened in the past and was completed in the past. It has no longer an impact on us now because it already happened and it's over. In French, we call it le passé simple, where it's a form that's very much used in English. It's a form that is used in French, but mainly in writing, in literature. It would sound very odd to hear someone expressing themselves in the passé simple orally. It would sound very old-fashioned. Now, it's a tense that is worth knowing, but it's probably something that you need to learn later on. The last tense is called the present perfect. You translate it as I have finished. And the idea is that something happened in the past, but you're considering it now. So I have finished, I started yesterday, and now I have finished. In French, it's called le passé composé, and this is the form that we are going to focus on today because this is the way we express the past in French. Whether we say I have finished or I finished, we are going to use this tense. So this is the one. So let's go and have a look at how it works. Let's take a sentence in the present perfect, which is the equivalent of le passé composé. On the one hand, we have the verb to have, used as an auxiliary verb. Now, an auxiliary verb is a verb that is not used for its meaning, it's used to form another tense. So it hasn't got the meaning of having, it's just used as part of another tense. So the verb to have in English is going to be the verb avoir in French. So we've got exactly the same structure so far. The second part of the present perfect is the verb with ed at the end. And that is the past form of the verb because you add ed. You don't have work, you have worked. And this past form of the verb is called a past participle. Again, you may have heard this term. Not complicated, a past participle is just the past form of the verb, usually in English with ed if the verb is regular. So how does it work in French? Well, let's take an example. J'ai, so it's the first person of avoir in French in the present tense. And then if we look at the word or the verb work is travailler, but travailler with er at the end, you know that it's an infinitive. It's an infinitive verb ending in er. If I leave it like that, I'm not going to have the idea of past. I need to replace the ending, the er, the mark of the infinitive, into something that's going to show me it's the past. And the way we do that is replace the er with an e with an accent, and it's pronounced e. J'ai travaillé. I have worked. I worked. For other types of verbs, let's take another example. I are verbs We're not going to have finir because that would be the infinitive. We need to replace the IR with something to show it's the past. And the way we do that is to put an I, pronounce I. Nous avons fini. We have finished, we finished. Last example, because we know we have 3 types of verbs in French. We've got ary verbs. Vendre is the infinitive. I need to replace the ary and show it's the past. So I'm going to replace the ary with a U, pronounced U. Ils ont vendu. They sold. They have sold. So to form the passé composé, we need the verb avoir in the present tense. Then we need to have a past participle ending in e for er verbs, I for ir verbs, U for ary verbs. To use le passé composé in negative sentences, you take the first part of the negative, the ne, and put it in front of the auxiliary. But here we're not going to put ne, N-E, because all the forms of avoir start with a vowel, so we are going to have an apostrophe instead. So that goes before, and then we put the final part of the negative after. Je n'ai pas, tu n'as rien, il n'a jamais. Then all we have to do is to add a past participle. So if I give you examples, je n'ai pas fini, I've not finished, I didn't finish. Elle n'a rien mangé, she didn't eat anything, she ate nothing. Nous n'avons jamais entendu, we have never heard, we never heard. Let's finish with a little task. In the blue box you have infinitive phrases of verbs. In a minute I'm going to show you the beginning of sentences, and using these phrases you need to form sentences in the passé composé. So let's go. You might want to pause the video before I reveal the answers to give yourself some time to write them down, or you can do it with me as we go along. Numéro 1. Jouer au tennis. In the past, in the passé composé, will become j'ai joué au tennis. Numéro 2. Manger une pizza. Nous avons mangé une pizza. Numéro 3. Careful here, we've got an ary verb, so we must think of the correct past participle ending. On a attendu le bus. Numéro 4. Appeler la police. Vous avez appelé la police. Numéro 5. Grandir. Mes enfants ont grandi. Numéro 6. Entendre un bruit. Tu as entendu un bruit? Et numéro 7. Grossir. Mon chat a grossi. Félicitations, you've now completed lesson number 1. As usual, I leave some tasks for you to complete. And in the meantime, all I have to say is au revoir et à bientôt for lesson number 2.